there were peaceful protests around this world against him because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law.
Jasmine Crockett blasts Pam Bondi for using Fox News to send what Crockett calls a threat to a sitting member of Congress. She argues the Attorney General shouldn't use her platform to intimidate lawmakers, especially as threats against officials are rising. Crockett says this shows the DOJ under Bondi is more focused on retribution than justice.
Yes. And with the news alert, guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, you know, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. As he shattered that, he said something about the fact that this should not be about left versus right. It should be about right versus wrong. And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric, and it is because of the selective enforcement of things. And so when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting attorney general go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'ma say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me, and that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
What Jasmine Crockett does here is not just a clapback. It's a constitutional lesson wrapped in a reality check. She starts with something Congress desperately needed to hear. Joe Biden is not the president anymore. The political playbook some members keep running, relitigating old grievances, old conspiracies, old enemies, is outdated. Crockett drags the room back into the present, because the present is where the real work is supposed to be happening. Her central argument is deceptively simple. Congress is not a courtroom, it's a legislature. They are supposed to be writing laws, not performing partisan trials disguised as oversight. And she connects that dysfunction directly to why Americans don't trust institutions, not because agencies suddenly stopped doing their jobs, but because elected leaders keep distorting, attacking, or weaponizing narratives that confuse the public and inflame division. Then, Crockett does something incredibly rare for members of Congress. She acknowledges that both sides are dealing with increased threats. She and the chairman don't agree on much, but they agree on that. And that matters because it sets the stage for understanding how dangerous it is when the nation's top law enforcement official chooses to escalate tension rather than calm it. That's when she pivots directly to Pam Bondi. Crockett calls out Bondi's Fox News appearance, or as she sharply puts it, faux news, where the AG referenced Crockett in a way Crockett interpreted as a threat. And Crockett makes a point that any viewer, regardless of party, should take seriously. When the Attorney General of the United States goes on national television and talks about a member of Congress in inflammatory terms, viewers take that as a signal. Some take it as permission. Crockett ties this directly to the rise in threats against public officials. She isn't being dramatic. She's describing how rhetoric and power combining to shape the real-world danger lawmakers face. And she makes it clear her comments about Elon Musk were not incitement. They were criticism, the same kind elected officials level every day. The right to criticize powerful figures is part of American democracy. Yet Bondi tried to turn that criticism into something prosecutable. Crockett reframes the conversation around equal justice. Why is a billionaire able to get federal resources and special protection that everyday Americans could never dream of? Why do wealthy figures get a different relationship with law enforcement than Black women, immigrants, working-class people, or small business owners? Those questions speak to something larger, the public perception that justice is not applied consistently. She then highlights something that should alarm anyone concerned about rule of law. Multiple members of Congress have received what they describe as intimidating letters from the DOJ under Bondi. That signals a department more interested in political retaliation than neutral enforcement. Crockett's closing is powerful because it's personal and universal at once. She shares the story of why she became a public defender, not to protect only people who look like her, but because representation matters. Because when she walks into a room, clients who've got ignored, dismissed, or profiled finally see someone who understands their reality. Her message is that serving the public requires empathy, credibility, and diversity, qualities she argues this DOJ lacks. She isn't just defending herself, she's defending the idea that justice should serve everyone, not just the wealthy, not just the powerful, and not just those whose politics align with the administration. What Crockett exposes here isn't a partisan dispute. It's a deep concern about how political rhetoric from the top of law enforcement can distort justice, endanger lawmakers, and intimidate dissent. And she makes it clear she will not be silenced, she will not be threatened, and she will not let the DOJ be used as a political tool. If you want breakdowns that cut through the noise and explain what these hearings really mean for democracy, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Loud Voice